By popular demand, here is my bash build guide. A lot of you guys have been asking for this, been seeing it on stream. Just absolutely decimate bosses, all of the uber bosses, no problem. Tormented bosses, no problem. Also, Pit, absolutely flying through that. Just an insane, undying, super high DPS Barbarian build. And if you enjoy this video and you find the build useful, then don't forget to give this video a like and a subscribe to help support your boy. Okay, and then kicking things off straight away with our skill tree. This is a bash build, so of course we've gone for max points into bash. Now you may be wondering, why do we not go for the third node on the skill here? And that's because these are basically for setting up core skills, which we're not using, so it's a point wasted. Moving down, we have a pretty familiar suite of passives here, and triple shout. You know, we're all seen this before, but strategic rallying cry, this is our main source of fortify, also our main source of unstoppable, which is very important to use correctly. We also have our challenging shout for damage reduction, and we have enhanced war cry for small damage bonus and also a berserking source. Well, it's actually quite a big bonus to damage, but there is a slight sort of pro tip here on this one that I want to give you guys, and that's not to continue using your shouts all at once. It's kind of, in the past, that was the way that you would do it. You just sort of smash them all as fast as possible, but you want to be kind of strategic with when you use them. You know, use rallying cry when you need fortify or if you need unstoppable. Same with challenging shout. If you need damage reduction, then you use it. And I think war cry is the only one that you'll pretty much just use on cooldown. So try and be, you know, a little bit more smart with when you use them, and that will make your time playing this class a hell of a lot easier in general. We also have all of the bonuses to the shouts in the tree as well as movement speed and more DR while berserking. We have power kick. Now, the reason we have power kick is because it spends our fury, and there is a reason for us wanting to spend our fury. This actually just hits really hard as well, and has a 4-second vulnerable on it, which is super useful for tough enemies. But the main thing here is spending fury, and the reason we want that is because, and we're jumping through the tree a little bit here, but we're only really skipping through some passes, as you can see. But we have Wrath of the Berserker. And the last node on this, Supreme Wrath of the Berserker, is essentially a double damage bonus when you spend 200 fury. And if you can just use one attack to spend all of your fury, it's very fast to get to that damage bonus. So what the tech is you essentially build up your fury, and then once you're ready, you pop Wrath of the Berserker, then you hit them with a kick, and it's got the full damage bonus now for the rest of the duration. So very, very cool synergy there. And of course, with kick, another thing to take note of is the fact that it has a 4-second vulnerable on it. So when you are fighting a really, really tanky enemy, you can throw in kicks periodically to keep that up so you're doing more damage to them. Other than that, yeah, we just have a couple of mainstay passives. You know, of course, we've got Thick Skin plus Counter Offensive, Pit Fighter, Wallop, Concussion, nothing too out of the unusual. And for our key passive, we're using Unconstrained for that juicy damage bonus while we're berserking. And we will be berserking a lot with this build. Now I'm going to move on to gear, and I'm only going to talk about the important things and leave the sort of really nitty-gritty stuff like the stat priorities to the build planner. And I do have a build planner. It's down in the description below. And don't forget, you can actually just download an app from Mobalytics, which shows you the builds while in-game, so you don't have to tab in and out, which is super useful. I'll leave a link to all of that down in the description. But as far as gear that's important, there is one unique I'd recommend trying to get first before playing this build. That is the Ramnadani's Magnum Opus. Now, it's not mandatory, but it scales your damage so much that it just makes a world of difference once you hit this item. It's really, really powerful. Allows you to scale your damage with your max fury. Just by having lots of fury, you do tons of damage. Very, very, very good item, like S tier item for the Barb. Now, moving on to aspects, you definitely are going to want adaptability. This gives your basic skills 120% multiplicative, 120% extra damage, while above 50% resource, which is practically all of the time because we don't really spend it outside of when we use Wrath of the Berserker and Kick. Then you need Moonrise. Moonrise gives you an attack speed buff as well as a damage buff to your basic skills, which, you know, again, it's just a massive, massive bonus to our damage with Bash. And then finally, you're going to want to get your hands on Hectic. Now, Hectic, what that does is it gives you a 2-second cooldown every 5 basic skill attacks. So every time you use Bash 5 times, you're going to get a 2-second cooldown on one of your active cooldowns, which just shreds cooldown numbers off of your spells, allowing you to like cast practically all of the time. Feels extremely good, makes the build very powerful and very fluid. Now, as far as tempers go, there is one that's absolutely mandatory. I believe it's called the Furious Augments Temper Manual. This is the one that has the bash can cleave plus additional damage to bash on it. You have to have this before you can even get the build started. Now, there is a lot going on with this build, a lot of stuff that complements it, but those are the things that are most important. Again, if you want all of the details, make sure you go check out the build planner because it'll have all of it written in there for you. As far as weapon technique goes, we are going to be using two-handed axe. Really nothing has changed there. Despite having a little bit of a nerf coming into this season, it is still the best in terms of raw damage, so we're going to be going with that. What we want in terms of weapon setup is a one-handed mace and a magnum opus, or just, you know, whatever weapon that you have that you're waiting to replace with the magnum opus. But you absolutely must have a mace. Reason for this is that we are using concussion and wallop to scale our damage and stun enemies, and you'll need to have a mace equipped in order to do that. You'll also need a mace equipped to actually even use dual wield while using bash, because it requires a mace. So that's important. Make sure you have that set up correct. And finally, we're going to go into the Paragon board. Now, like with the gear, I'll leave a lot of the, I'm not going to tell you where to put every single point. It's going to take like an hour to do that. We'll talk about the core points. So we're going to talk about the glyphs, basically. We have Ire. Reason for this is that it gives us a ton of damage while berserking, plus damage reduction while berserking, which again is going to be like 75 to like 90% of the time. We then have the Blood Rage board, which allows us to convert our damage while berserking into a separate multiplicative damage bonus. This just means we're getting to double down on the damage we get from that and getting a lot off it. So this is really, really, really powerful. We then have Undaunted, because damage reduction is very hard to come by, and this is a very, very good source of it. We then, of course, have the Warbringer board. This is extremely valuable to us because we get a lot of max fury on it, and like I mentioned earlier, we scale that through the magnum opus. There's all resist as well, lots of life on here, and some resistances if you need it. Now, I will say that my Paragon board that you're seeing on screen is very specific to my character's needs. I've needed this fire res. You may not. So the build planner that you see will be a catch-all. You may want to consider changing a couple of things based on your needs. And this is one thing that I've done here. If you don't know where to take points from, there'll probably be points down here that you can take away from, or any node that's over invested in that you can move some points away from that as a general rule. Next glyph is we have Exploit. This is our primary source of making enemies vulnerable to begin with, plus a little bit of a damage bonus there. Next is the Flawless Technique board. We got Territorial on here. Now, this is a really nice source of damage reduction again, and the board has quite a lot of it itself for a relatively low investment. We have the Carnage board as well, a mainstay. I practically put this in every BARB build for the last like 4 or 5 months, but it's super powerful. We get a ton of attack speed, a ton of berserking damage in here, and the glyph that we have is Ambidextrous, gives us 8% damage while dual wielding, which we will be doing. Next is on the final board here, Decimator. Decimator, just a very strong source of damage, and also got a couple of nice rare nodes along the way there. So that's the full Paragon board. Like I said, the one on the build planner will be slightly different because I'm going to optimize that for a more catch-all situation, whereas this one is slightly bent to the needs that my character has based on the gear that I have. And that's the build. If you enjoyed the video, if you liked the build, don't forget to give the video a like and subscribe to the channel for more Diablo content. And just as a quick sort of final signing off, if the build planner is any different, just don't forget I keep these up to date. I will change things based on the current meta, the min-max and all of that. So whatever's in the build planner is always the most current version of the most powerful version of this build. Anyways, catch you on the next one. Love you. Bye.